The Backrooms.
Hello? Hello?
The Backrooms exist as an infinite maze of yellowed office spaces beyond reality's boundaries, accessible through no clipping, accidentally phasing through walls in locations that feel subtly wrong. This otherworldly dimension spans an estimated 600 million square miles of damp carpeting, buzzing fluorescent lights, and endless corridors that loop impossibly back on themselves. In Kane Pixel's universe, the corporate research organization Async discovers and exploits this space following a catastrophic 1972 experiment that literally fractures reality. Led by figures like Ivan Beck, Async develops technology to access what they publicly market as A-space, promising unlimited storage and residential solutions to government officials while concealing their true agenda behind layers of deception. The dimension's endless yellow rooms house aggressive bacterial entities that consume human flesh, growing increasingly dangerous over time. Async's reckless experimentation causes missing persons cases to spike as people accidentally slip into this realm. Their own researchers face horrific fates. Peter Tench disappears during exploration, only to reappear months later, having experienced time travel, driving him to madness as the company stages his death twice to maintain secrecy. Within these corridors, time itself behaves erratically, creating paradoxes and impossible dates. Rooms shift unexpectedly, furniture appears from nowhere, and spaces mirror real-world locations in disturbing ways. The original warning remains chillingly relevant. If you hear something moving in the distance, it has certainly heard you first. Async's pursuit of profit through dimensional exploitation threatens not just individual lives, but reality's fundamental structure, leaving behind corporate conspiracy, human suffering, and cosmic horror in these inescapable yellow halls. The Smile Tapes. The Smile Tapes chronicles a catastrophic fungal outbreak that begins in 1994 with a mysterious drug circulating for several months, initially causing 500 deaths. The infection produces mania, uncontrollable laughter, unprovoked violence, and an inhuman smile, with victims becoming highly contagious through airborne spores. The disease progresses through 4 stages over approximately 6 weeks. Stage 1 involves beginning to smile while maintaining some resistance, along with temporary meningitis. By Stage 2, victims lose all control, exhibiting uncontrollable smiling, laughter, and predatory violence. Stage 3 brings permanent facial tissue damage and degraded motor functions. The final stage involves facial rot and late-stage Alzheimer's-like symptoms before death. The crisis becomes public after Sean Gomez's New Year's massacre, killing 16 people. Infected by a spore puffer who threw what appeared to be a flower at him, Sean documented his deterioration through journal entries, describing physical and mental anguish while being forced to smile. His writings eventually became incoherent, rambling about happiness and fixing the world's violence. The fungus mutates into 3 variants by 1995. Variant A remains the original strain. Variant B appears asymptomatic but still contagious. Variant C becomes extremely dangerous with heightened senses, inhuman strength, and bulletproof exterior. Despite presidential warnings and National Guard intervention, the outbreak spreads to San Diego and Tijuana. Scientists eventually trace the fungus to an extraterrestrial microbe found in an 80-million-year-old insect from the Yucatan Peninsula, naming it Abaliomundo rhesus. The outbreak apparently ends after survivors discover fire as an effective weapon against the infected, though mysterious lights appearing over cities suggest otherworldly involvement. The Mandela Catalogue. The Mandela Catalogue takes place in the fictional Mandela County, Wisconsin, where demonic creatures called alternates are systematically wiping out humanity. These shape-shifting entities, led by Satan disguised as the Archangel Gabriel, psychologically torment their victims until they commit suicide, then steal their identities to blend seamlessly into society. The crisis begins with Satan corrupting biblical events from the very start, appearing as Gabriel during the Nativity and tricking humanity throughout history. Alternates can control electronic devices like TVs, computers, and GPS systems, using them to stalk and terrorize people. One particularly disturbing method involves a children's show featuring a puppet named Stanley, who teaches kids to create imaginary friends that turn out to be deadly alternates. The story follows several characters across the 1990s and 2000s, including paranormal investigators Adam Murray and Jonah Marshall, along with police officers Thatcher Davis and Ruth Weaver. Their investigations into alternate activity lead to tragic consequences. Jonah dies during one investigation, and Adam eventually discovers he may actually be an alternate himself, specifically one known as the Intruder. As the invasion continues, Mandela County's population drops drastically from 15,000 to just 1,000 people. The government tries to contain the threat through an organization called the USDTP, but the alternates prove nearly impossible to stop. The series explores how these perfect mimics make it impossible to trust anyone, creating a world where distinguishing between human and monster becomes increasingly difficult, and survival seems hopeless against an enemy that can become anyone. The Monument Mythos. The Monument Mythos spans multiple universes connected by the living island of Alcatraz, a powerful entity capable of assimilating and replicating anything it touches. The story begins in the modern Robverse, where Alcatraz seeks world domination by creating imperfect clones to infiltrate politics, including crude copies of Mickey Mouse that become the Monument Monster and Debate Demon, secretly controlling America's political parties. These entities manipulate President Robert Pattinson into launching Operation Seed, missiles hidden in monuments worldwide that spread radiation, allowing Alcatraz to expand globally. As the Robverse collapses, the monster and demon escape to create a new universe called the Deanverse, where they become godlike beings known as Tree and Serpent. The Deanverse features a twisted version of American history, where George Washington becomes the monstrous horned serpent after encountering a special tree, and monuments gain supernatural properties. President James Dean, despite his popularity, brings destruction to America through various catastrophes. Meanwhile, characters like Virginia Arnoldson travel between dimensions using special trees, and the Statue of Freedom becomes a living, protective entity. The climax occurs when the Air Force One Angel battles Freedom, shattering the Earth and releasing the Horned Serpent in an event called the Great Division. Alcatraz survives as Richard Nixon, absorbing the universe's power and creating the Nixonverse with superhuman beings like the Last Sun and D-Day Night. The series explores themes of American mythology, governmental conspiracy, and cosmic horror across multiple timelines, where monuments serve as gateways between realities and historical figures become otherworldly entities threatening existence itself. The Painter. The Painter follows the brutal killing spree of two deranged serial killers operating sometime in the early to mid-2000s. The duo consists of Mona D. Lanius, the leader who creates disturbing paintings of each victim, and Bill Collins, a police officer who becomes her partner after she murders his family and mutilates him into joining her cause. Operating from an abandoned warehouse next to a textile factory they call Hell, the pair systematically torture and kill over 100 victims in increasingly grotesque ways. Mona's signature involves creating twisted artwork depicting each victim after their death, using these paintings as calling cards left at crime scenes to taunt police investigators. Their victims span all ages, from infants to elderly adults, with each murder involving extreme sexual violence and elaborate torture methods. The killers target families, individuals, and even law enforcement, showing no mercy in their systematic campaign of terror. They operate with methodical precision, breaking into homes, abducting victims, and transporting them to remote locations for prolonged torture sessions. The killing spree finally ends when police receive an anonymous tip leading them to the killer's factory hideout, where they discover numerous decomposing bodies and evidence of cannibalism. The climax occurs during a wellness check on survivor Tina Rosenberg, where Officer Nathan Cole confronts both killers. Bill is shot dead while attempting to attack the officer, and Mona surrenders, later confessing to over 100 murders. The story is presented through police case file VHS tapes mysteriously found in an apartment basement, suggesting the documentation may have been created by the killers themselves to chronicle their reign of terror. Gemini Home Entertainment. Gemini Home Entertainment presents a world under siege from an extraterrestrial invasion orchestrated by the Iris, a sentient planet-like entity that has infiltrated the solar system. Through a series of seemingly innocent educational videos, commercials, and instructional tapes, the true horror gradually unfolds as Earth faces systematic conquest through parasitic creatures and infectious diseases. The invasion manifests through multiple threats working in coordination. Wood crawlers, spider-like creatures, infiltrate homes and steal human voices, creating fake people, imperfect doppelgangers that struggle to mimic human behavior. These entities hunt in swarms, preferring large families for easier adaptation and assimilation of their victims. A devastating biological weapon called deep root disease spreads through fungal-like pathogens that parasitically infect humans. The disease progressively mutates victims' bodies over weeks, transforming them into masses of root-like structures while keeping them alive throughout the horrific process. Eventually, infected individuals become specimens of nature's mockery, a plant-fungus hybrid that causes hallucinations, paralysis, and flesh decay in anyone who encounters it. The iris operates through an underground network of gardens, tended by massive spider-like gardeners deep within Earth's crust. These subterranean facilities appear to cultivate and produce the various creatures and pathogens used in the invasion. The entity also influences technology, corrupting artificial intelligence systems and using them to communicate cryptic messages about the ongoing conquest. Throughout this apocalyptic scenario, various fictional companies unknowingly document humanity's downfall through their mundane educational content, creating an unsettling contrast between normal life and the creeping cosmic horror systematically destroying civilization from within. The Oldest View. The Oldest View tells the story of Wyatt, a college student who discovers a mysterious staircase beneath an oak tree leading to an abandoned shopping mall deep underground. This mall turns out to be an exact replica of the demolished Valley View Mall from Dallas, Texas, complete with art studios and galleries that once housed local artists before the mall's destruction in 2019. The story connects to the historical figure Julian Revignon, a 19th century French botanist who moved to Texas and dedicated his life to cataloging over 2,600 plant species. After his death, artist Kevin Loon created a giant papier-mâché statue in Julian's honor, which was eventually housed in the Valley View Mall's artist studios before the building's demolition. Inside the underground mall, Wyatt encounters this rolling giant, a towering statue that seems to harbor Julian's spirit. The mall itself functions as a living memory, cycling through different states of decay and time periods whenever Wyatt isn't directly observing it. The giant acts as a guardian, attempting to preserve the mall's oldest view, its final state before demolition, while trying to force Wyatt to leave. As Wyatt explores deeper, the mall becomes increasingly hostile and unstable. The giant, embodying Julian's love for nature, views Wyatt as a threat since he abandoned botany for business studies. The story climaxes when Wyatt attempts to escape through the emergency exit, only to fall to his death as the mall's structure collapses. The narrative serves as a meditation on nostalgia, impermanence, and the destructive nature of refusing to let go of the past. Vita Carnis. Vita Carnis presents a world transformed by the arrival of 8 distinct species of living meat creatures that appeared globally 60 years ago. These skinless organic beings fundamentally altered Earth's ecosystem, with each variant serving different roles in what appears to be a coordinated biological invasion. The foundational species is the crawl, a network of meaty vines spreading across the planet like a circulatory system. From the crawl emerge trimmings, small, docile creatures resembling skinned raccoons that humans have begun adopting as pets, though they serve as scouts gathering intelligence through radio equipment. Meat snakes function as disposal units, consuming corpses and growing to enormous sizes, while mimics represent the perfect human predator, capable of perfectly imitating people after consuming enough human flesh. More dangerous variants include harvesters, stationary creatures with 500-foot underground root systems that inject fatal toxins into anything large enough to trigger their reflexes. Hosts of influence release airborne spores that control human behavior, forcing victims to walk directly to the creature to be consumed. 7 colossal monoliths stand guard in a circular formation around a mysterious location, capable of devastating attacks and electromagnetic pulses. At the apex lies the Singularity, a 3-foot hovering orb that appears to orchestrate the entire invasion. A human cult has formed around these creatures, secretly adding flavor enhancer made from host spores to food supplies, gradually conditioning humanity to accept and even consume the living meat. The series suggests this represents only the beginning of a larger extraterrestrial conquest, with the singularity being merely a prince calling for reinforcements from its species.